Okay. Got it. Letting people in now, guys.
Great.
So good morning, everyone. Our session is going to start momentarily here. We're just waiting for a few more people to join us. As you join, can you please pop your name, business or organization in the chat, just so we know where you're from? And let us know the traditional and unceded territories where you live and work. For example, I'll begin. I would like to acknowledge the traditional and unceded territories of the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations on which I live and work. Thanks, guys.
I have to agree, Jill. I find Tsleil-Waututh, I'm not quite sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Does anybody know?
Hopefully I pronounced it okay.
Okay. Oh, hi, Terry from Kelowna. Great to see someone from further afield, and Austin, Texas. Wonderful.
Hi, Victor, welcome. And Tasha, thanks for sharing.
I like your title, Tasha, as always, Lady Boss.
All right, we just got a few more joining us here, so let's make sure they get in.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us here today. If you haven't already, I'd love to know who's in the room. Put your name, your business or organization, and the First Nations territories that you're joining us from today. If you have a chance, it's nice to see everybody in the room. So it's my pleasure to welcome you to the third session of the Greater Vancouver Circular Economy Network. And this is designed to support the growth of circular businesses in the region. And, you know, it's really based on the priorities that we heard are important to circular businesses to help you scale. And it's spearheaded by a collaboration between, as you can see on the slide there, the Vancouver Economic Commission, Van City, and the Share Reuse Repair Initiative. And my name is Rosemary. Hello to all. I'm the project director of the Share Reuse Repair Initiative, also part-time faculty at BCIT School of Business, where I've taught the circular economy since 2014, before it was as popular and there's as many people to talk about it with today. And I am joining you here today from the territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I also wanted to just give a quick nod to the other folks that are here with us today. We have Meg O'Shea and Brianna Bishop from the Vancouver Economic Commission. Meg and Brianna, do you want to wave hello to everyone?
Morning, everybody.
Hello. Tremendous. We also have Michelle Bonner from Van City, the cooperative financial institution committed to supporting a transition to a low carbon resilient economy. that works for everyone. We're extremely fortunate to have a credit union like Vancity in our region, Southwest BC. Want to wave hello, Michelle? Great. Hi, Michelle. We also have Alice Henry joining us from the Share Reuse Repair Initiative. You want to wave hello, Alice? Great. And Jill, who's supporting this event as from a coordination perspective and keeping us all together. Jill, do you want to wave hello?
Hey all.
Okay, great. Well, our session today is about how do we communicate and leverage circular metrics for business advantage. And we have two great speakers. Today, we have Jessica Regan from FoodMesh and Kristy O'Leary from Decade Impact. We're going to hear from them. We're going to have a chance to ask them some questions, and then we're going to then have the chance to connect and talk into some small breakout rooms to take on the topics or the questions that are most relevant to you and your business or organization. Just a quick few admin matters before we get going. The session is being recorded today. So if you want to, you can choose to remain off camera and submit any questions into the chat function. If you don't wish to be recorded, just want to let you know that the breakout rooms won't be recorded, so you're welcome to stay on camera there. And if you have any tech trouble, want to suggest a speaker or a topic that pops to mind as you're listening today, please reach out to Jill in the chat function. Go at Jill, Gill, is the way she spells her name. So with that, let's just dive in. So I'd like to introduce our speaker, Jessica Regan. Jessica is a dynamic, I would add, businesswoman who is really passionate about ending food waste and using business to achieve environmental and social change. She's a co-founder of FoodMesh, a Vancouver-based B Corp that helps organizations waste less food and feed more people. And she's going to talk with us today about a couple of things. FoodMesh's approach to metrics for different stakeholders and to use that to leverage business advantage. But she's also going to talk to us about something that she refers to as next level metrics. So Jessica, welcome, and I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thank you so much. And it's great to be here. Can everybody hear me okay? Excellent. Okay, well, yeah, so as Rosemary said, I've been working with FoodMesh since 2016, and what we're doing is using business as a force for positive change. And so the focus, of course, is how to make metrics matter for your business, for circular businesses. So, you know, we start with the premise that you cannot change what you do not measure. So measurement is a really key fundamental baseline to calculate how you measure success. So starting with that, the talk that I'd like to do over the next 10 minutes or so is to talk about, you know, why are metrics so important? How are the metrics serving us and furthering our journey? And what are some of the metrics, some of the tips that can help metrics work for you and your circular business? So as I mentioned, metrics define what your values are. What you measure is a reflective of what you care about. So it's very telling on how people advertise themselves and what their values are. And when we look at the metrics, we look at the 5 W's, you know, who are we speaking to? What are we measuring? Why are we measuring? How are we doing that? And where are the measurements? So when we do these metrics, I'm always thinking back to the 5 W's. And then I'll go into the how metrics are helping our journey, and then of course going into the tips on making metrics work. So I want to start with the why, because I think it's really important to always start with the heart of the matter. And for us, it's very clear. Food waste is one of the single largest contributors to climate change, representing 8% of all greenhouse gas emissions. So that premise alone is enough to set us alight, like I would say, and it's enough to put enough fire in our belly and to inspire change. So just to give a little bit of context on the cause that we're working in is avoidable wasted food. So for those who don't have context, there was a report done by Second Harvest in 2019 that was pretty damning in terms of the amount of wasted food in Canada. And they found that 58% of the food that's produced is lost or wasted along the supply chain. This is a photo from a film, Just Eat It. I'm sure many of you have seen it. This is just a visual representation of the problem. And it's probably enough to make any human on a visceral level sick and fired up. So as you look more into the problem, what we've realized is that 86% of this problem occurs along the supply chain, at the production, processing, and manufacturing level. This is at a business level. So there's business issues and lost revenue, and there's a major shortages and fragmentation happening along the supply chain. And where there are problems, there are opportunities to repair. So in 2016, we started FoodMesh, and FoodMesh is about connecting businesses with new alternative channels. And what we do is we offer a platform to help connect unsold food with those who need it. And what we're doing is we're supporting and building an ecosystem of food businesses, farmers, and connect them to new channels such as upcyclers, charitable organizations, composters, recycle or rework, whatever the fit may be, and using technology to find those matches where appropriate. And we do 3 core functions. The first is to connect, and that's through leveraging the platform and building the audience. The second function is to help coordinate and find those matches in a safe and effective way. And the third, is the tracking and measurement of that work. We do this through 3 different programs, just quickly. So we have, our first program was a B2B surplus marketplace. We have over 700 businesses and charities that are exchanging food on an ad hoc basis. So we help, whether through truckloads of product, pallets, caseloads, to help sell or donate that product to new markets. And you can see here, this is representative of the network that we have across Canada and into the States. And so we've been running that for about 4 years. And then 3 years ago, to the week, we launched a program to help grocery stores. One of the things that we realized quickly is that grocery stores on a daily basis shrink out food that could otherwise find higher and better end uses. So since that program started, we've grown to 150 stores, 9 banners, 4 provinces, and we have a network of over 1,500 charities and farmers that are recipients. And how that program works is we just build little recovery networks around all participating stores. And we built a system to help not only connect them, but track that data in a coherent and reliable way. This picture is just a photo of the operational model. And the most important piece here is how we prioritize in the hierarchy of highest and best end use, edible, animal, and then compost. And then the third program that we've launched is our Regional Food Recovery Network program, where we partner with cities that have a stated interest in helping build local networks to help exchange food in more responsible ways. We started with the Fraser Valley, then we worked with the city of Richmond, and just a couple of days ago, we launched an exciting project with Metro Vancouver, where we'll be building now the largest food recovery network across all 21 cities over the next 3 years. So we're incredibly excited about this one. And there will be lots of events coming up over the coming months and years to help ignite and activate our local network so that we are not wasting avoidable wasted foods. So those are the 3 programs. And collectively, our work and the network's work has had some substantial outcomes, I would say. And these are the social impact metrics that we measure and that we care about. So to date, cumulatively, we've helped rescue over 16 million meals with a 700,000 meal rescue rate per month. That is done through, as I said, through hundreds of charities picking up on a daily basis. And then we also measure the amount of food that's been diverted from landfill to higher end uses. We measure the CO2 as well as the money saved. So as I mentioned earlier, what you measure defines what you care about. And this is what we lead with. This is our public facing metrics, because as a triple bottom line company, the economic, the environmental, and the social are equally important to us. And we embed that into the DNA of our decision making as well as our communication, because this is quite important. Now, for those who are asking about how how do you go about starting to collect that data and the metrics and what's the process there? So I would say that there's three steps. So first of all is what are your data inputs? Like, what are the things that you're measuring? Getting really clear on what they are. The second is then, of course, the metrics, quantifying the performance and determining the 5 Ws. And then that shoots into your KPIs, which helps you further your business objectives, whether it's through helping close sales targets or depending on who your audience is. So just looking at the data collection process, this is something we take very seriously, and it's kind of it's foundational to our work. And so we rely on third-party data feeds a lot for our work. So through our retail recovery program, we actually enlist the charities and the farmers that are picking up to input the data. And we now have several 100,000 data points, and we look at every single photo to make sure that it matches with the data point, so that there's no anomalies and whatnot, and we can stand behind the integrity of our data. And we have a margin of error of up to 3.5% at this point. So the quality of your data is foundational in order for you to be able to show, of course, your metrics and your KPIs. The second thing I think is really important is also the economics of your metrics. So, what is the economic driver of your metrics? Why are you collecting it? Is it for a sales tool? Is it to build your brand? Is it to close the right investors? And for us, the metrics have to be sustainable. So we've made a decision to pay for the data inputs from the charities and farmers. So we, to date, through our retail program, we've done just over $600,000 in revenue sharing with the charity partners to ensure that there's reliable and consistent data, because that's the stuff that we bubble up and then send out as insights to our customers. So there's a value in the data, there's a value in the metrics, and what we're trying to do is build a food recovery economy to make sure that there's reliability baked into the model. And then, of course, like, how do you communicate your metrics once you start to get it? And I saw this on somebody sent this to me on LinkedIn a while ago, and I really love it because it really helps show that getting data is one thing. How you organize it or arrange it and present it can land differently, but the most important thing is how you explain it with a story. The power of storytelling is really salient, and that is something that now that we're getting enough data, we're trying to figure out how do we tell the story to not just to show the good work, but also to inspire change. And then we go into, like, who are your stakeholders? So thinking about the 5 Ws, thinking about in our order, in terms of the pecking order of priorities, the customers, we want to make sure that our metrics are serving our customers. The second is our team. We want to make sure that what we're doing and what we're measuring is we're aware of our team happiness and their engagement, and making sure that the values are aligned. Then our partners and vendors, the public, board of directors, and investors. And this picture just on the right here is representative of the different customers that we have. So when we collect the data and we share it, it's keeping in mind of these different stakeholders. So speaking of customers, these are some of the examples of some of the data and the metrics that we are showcasing. So for the retail program, the idea is that we use diversion as a means to prevention. But as I said, you can't really change what you don't measure. So we work in food recovery. Food recovery is a remedy. It is not solving the root of the problem, but we recognize that there's surplus along the supply chain, and we have evidence that over half of that food is still perfectly edible, and our mission is to help find good homes for that food. However, we want to be able to use that data to help inspire change. So what we're starting to do is, as we now have more and more data, we're able to start to show that data in a way that decision makers and operators can start to look at their behavior and look at a store level. And what's starting to be revealing is this is actual shrink data from one of our participating stores. And you can see here that the meat and seafood and the dairy 93 and 96% of the food they shrink out is perfectly consumable. So this is mind-blowing for the operators, for pretty much anyone who sees this. This is unsaleable food that hit the best before date or just a couple of days before, depending on the store. Sometimes they pull it 3 days before for their brand promise. And this was food that was previously discarded. So these are the types of insights that we're able to now share with people in order to help inspire change. And so our dashboards and insights are starting to see behavior trends, and we're starting to see some reduction in the shrink behavior. So we're not sure if this is because of the fact that we're showing these metrics and there's some change happening, or the fact that they're no longer just throwing it out. They actually have to package it carefully and hand it over to the charities. So whatever's happening at the store level, we're starting to see some meaningful change in the prevention of the shrink. And then as we present it out to the community, this is really important for the stores. This is a report that we give to all of the stores every month, and it's an update on their impact metrics so that they can feel good about the change behaviors that they've done, and to show that the work that they're doing is actually having change. And these are just some of the photos of that work. And for municipal customers, the metrics that they care about or that we present on are four here. So number of participating organizations, the amount of food that's diverted, the meals created, and the dollars saved. So as I said, these are when we present our impact metrics, we can try to consider the social, the environmental, as well as the economic, because those are all important. And then as we go into the business, because as you say, you cannot have, they say no margin, no mission. So I'm a big proponent of sustainable business model. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if you can't build a sustainable economic model behind it and have good foundational economics, then you can't survive. And so we also have internal performance measurement metrics, and we use this framework. Some people call it the 3-Hag way from Shanna Susko, or the one-page strategic plan. And it's rooted in your core values. Everything needs to be centered into your why, your purpose, your heart, and then you go into your targets, goals, actions. And we're becoming more and more methodical in terms of like, what are the metrics to keep us sustainable, to keep the lights on? And so these are some of the things that we measure to keep our circular business operating. And then finally, there's the external metrics. So there's one thing to have your own internal metrics. It's also great to start to have external metric verification standards. We are big proponents of the B Corp. We received the B Corp certification this year, and we're fortunate to win the best for the world in the governance side of things. And this is a fantastic certification that also looks at more of a holistic standpoint in how you run your business. And I'm sure there's many others, and I encourage anybody that uses other third-party standards to put it into the chat on what are some of the verification standards to help measure ethical performance. I'd be curious to know some of the others that businesses are using. So I'll leave it at that and turn it over to you to think about what are the metrics that you're measuring for your organization. And going back to the 5 W's, you know, what are the 3 to 5 that are most foundational for your organization? Who is the audience that you're targeting? Is it your team? Is it your customers? Is it the public? Or investors? Because what you put out there is what you attract. So if you're only putting out financial metrics, you're going to attract only financial savvy investors. When we first did our first raise, we actually didn't even talk about the economics. We were talking about the impact, and we attracted the right investors. They were social impact investors. So just be mindful of what you put out there, because that's what you attract, I would say. And that also goes for your team and whatnot. And then go into the why. You know, why are you doing these metrics? Get really serious with them, because metrics are a really good means to help further your business. They've been instrumental in furthering ours. And so just looking at the why, the when, what is your baseline, and what is your frequency of measurement, and making sure that you build it into a cadence and a rhythm so that it becomes part of the heartbeat of your business. And then how, you know, how do you define success and those impact metrics? So I'll leave it at that. I'm sure there's lots of questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That was a really rich presentation. We're having a chance to, if you choose to, there'll be a breakout group that involves Jessica, but it's also a chance to ask some questions now directly of her. And so let's just, we're not a very large group, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question directly of Jessica if you have one.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Jessica.
please go ahead, Kristy.
Love your presentation. You know, and in some of the slides you shared, those metrics are starting to get really big. Like they're starting to be really, really impressive. And how many years has FoodMesh? Sorry, I know you said when you founded FoodMesh.
Yeah, no, well, the idea started in 2015. We incorporated in 2016, and we first launched in 2017. So 4 years.
So how do your stakeholders respond to those metrics? Like, have you seen a different response from your stakeholders based on how those metrics are growing over time?
Yes, it's actually getting easier now that we have that critical mass and that momentum. We're actually able to use those KPIs as a selling tool to bring on more organizations. So getting those first organizations to believe in what we were doing, and this crazy idea of building a virtual ecosystem to share surplus food was a bit wild. But these metrics are in some ways validating the concept and helping it make it quite a lot easier, I would say.
Absolutely. I think that those, when metrics start to get really big like that, for a user, from a user's perspective, they're like, oh, I'm a part of something that's huge. Like, even if you're a small organization, it makes them feel like those metrics have meaning, and you know, it's a kind of wet paint. They get the meaning in them.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like this is the work of the networks. For us, we're effectively just a matchmaker and a coordinator. It's the charities and the food businesses that are doing all of the heavy lifting. And what our role is to help, as I mentioned, just to connect and coordinate, but to measure across the board, and to bring effect, in a sense, a harmonization of that data tracking, because there's a lot of really great work, but often it's done in silos and it's fragmented, and we're not able to kind of bring it together and harness it and showcase the good work. There was actually another recent study from Second Harvest on the invisible network of nonprofits. There's 61,000 food rescue charities across Canada. Most of them are doing incredible work on a day-to-day basis, and we're not seeing that information. So our role, as we see it, is a data aggregator, and to be able to showcase that positive work that's happening, so to inspire more change.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
That's awesome. Louise, you have a question.
Yes, thanks. Hi, Jessica. Great presentation. Fantastic. Just brilliant work. The question around the governance piece of your metric, like very interesting to see that. And I think even Kristy sort of commented, that is a very kind of challenging, often gray area to dive into. You know, it's not hard numbers and metrics that way. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, in your experience as best in the world on that category of your business, and how you did that?
Yeah, thank you. So I guess I have the good fortune of being aware of the B Corp framework before I started the business. And the benefit of being at the helm of the business is I can decide how to build the business. So I've embedded ethical, good governance, what I believe is good governance practices into every possible step of the way. So sometimes people think you have to grow first and then do it later. We've decided to grow a little bit slower and grow well. And so that means having, transparency and employee stock options and all these different kind of components. So I've actually kind of used the B Corp framework as almost like a task list. I'm like, okay, I want to make sure I'm doing that. I want to do that. So I did the baseline when we first started. We weren't even close to being certified. It took us about 3 years to get certification. And that's why I say start with your baseline. You're not going to crush it out of the park, the first round, but just use that as a baseline, be gentle on yourself, and just work towards your goals. So we did get there, and we're quite pleased, but there's a lot more to do.
Okay, there's a couple more questions coming in. Sarah has asked, okay, could you expand on how you're using your data and networks to work upstream? Can you share more about how you are getting at the root of the problem through your metrics?
Yeah, so thank you for that. So right now, as I mentioned, our role, like there's a hierarchy in food recovery. So the top of that is prevention. I think there's not a single person in the world that can disagree with prevention is the way to go. When there is surplus, then it's to try and do cost recovery because businesses need to stay in business, then donate to humans, animals, farmers, and so forth. So we sit in the rung of food recovery, but as I mentioned, the data that we collect is used to hope inspire change. So the operators might feel good about, or the marketing team might feel good about the social impact reports, but the operators do not. They are embarrassed by those, and that is motivation for them to change. So this is when they start to see that information, it puts a spotlight onto a very real problem, and so we're doing our work because that's where we sit in food recovery, but the data. Our hope is to inspire change. So that's how we're hoping to inspire to move that upstream.
Yeah, Jessica, I really feel that if I worked in the meat and seafood or dairy departments, I would want to be really motivated to change those metrics because they do feel a little embarrassing.
Yes, yeah. And I should say that's not representative of all brands and all regions. This was a snapshot of a particular cluster of stores. So, but yeah.
And a great opportunity for change. Like let's not stay in a place of blame. It's just an opportunity to move forward and to change.
Bet. Baseline. That's the baseline. How to improve from that.
Okay, and I've got one more question from Miguel, pardon me, I hope I didn't say that incorrectly, and then we'll move on to hear the presentation from Kristy. Miguel.
Yeah, thanks, Rosemary. Awesome stuff, Jessica. Metrics are mind-blowing. I had one question. For me, data validation and trust in the metrics that I collect is so crucial. I know you brought up analyzing photographic data or information. I'm just kind of curious what systems you have in place to really trust the data you're presenting and collecting, because that's so important, obviously. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, like we and I did see in the chat somewhere about how do we pay for this data and then how do we monetize it. So metrics is part of our business model, and the integrity of that data is paramount. So as I mentioned, the charitable organizations that pick up, they enter it through an app that we built for them, and we have a quality assurance process where every day there's a team that goes through every single data input and matches it. So does the photo match the input? Because sometimes there's a lot of volunteers and turnover with these organizations, and sometimes they might add an extra zero by accident. So we have embedded this QA process into our work so that we can stand behind that data. And so in terms of the economics of that, the idea is that we then sell that to the retailers as part of the subscription. So we build in that revenue share model, and then we're trying to build a food recovery economy through this. So putting some economics behind the metrics is important. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. I'm just wanted to let you know that Jessica is sticking around for the breakout group discussions. So if she said something that piqued your interest, or you have further questions, there is that opportunity. So thank you so much, Jessica. Greatly appreciate you taking your time today and sharing with us how you're doing, measuring things, how it connects to your why, makes business sense, but is also leveraging up for changing the root of the problem. So next, I'm really pleased to introduce Kristy O'Leary. Kristy is the co-founder and creative director of Decade Impact. She's a multidisciplinary systems thinker with an innate ability to identify leading edge entrepreneurs and align them with untapped opportunities to drive breakthrough change. She's also an awesome storyteller. And so she's going to talk with us today about how to use metrics to tell a really compelling story of your business advantage. Welcome, Kristy.
Hi, thanks, Rosemary. Really glad to be here. I'm going to share my screen here. And maybe I could get you to stop sharing so I can. Awesome, thanks. Let me just get myself set up here. Awesome. So really pleased to be here. As Rosemary said, I'm one of the co-founders of Decade Impact. There's a lot in the name. We believe this decade is the most important decade in human history. The actions that we take in this decade they're really gonna determine the future of life on this planet. So we're serious about impact, and we're very serious about metrics and how we support our clients in building metric sets that really tell a compelling story and create deeper value for the organization. So our mission, we believe every company can leave the world better than they found it. Every person deserves to feel the delight of change making, and absolutely anything is possible. So basically we spend our days helping organizations define, measure, manage, and communicate the impact they create. And that communication piece, I'm so glad that I get to be here with you today, because that communication piece is often the place where impact-centered organizations fall down. And so, there's all kinds of challenges when we think about how we're going to communicate impact. And I think Jessica said it really well. You can't change what you don't measure. So measurement is super, super important to us. And it's also really critical in how brands project their public persona and what kind of data they're sharing to tell that really impactful story about the change that those consumers can join them, that movement they're trying to build in terms of how they're doing things. But there are a few challenges when we think about communicating impact and our metrics. First of all, we have greenwashing. We all know it. We're all familiar with the greenwashers, those companies that pass themselves off as environmentally and socially progressive when in fact they are not. They are pants on fire, and we're not at all interested in working with those folks. And we think the only way to stop greenwashing is to really communicate. But in the impact business movement and purpose-driven companies, we see a lot of greenwashing. And this is really companies that are silent about the positive impact they're creating and the methods they're employing to get the job done. I think we've had such a focus on those profit metrics, those economic metrics, that oftentimes companies, even really sophisticated impact companies, are sort of being really shy about how they communicate. I feel like generally most companies just want to be at the big kids table. And at this point, we need our own kind of impact big kids table. Because traditionally, if you were talking about social or environmental metrics, up until 2 or 3 years ago, you were kind of put at the kids table. So one of the really important things that we take into our work is delight. And data is delightful. We're really interested in working with our companies to help them become evidence-based brands. Make your stakeholders swoon with metrics that matter, and metrics that make that thing they're buying from you even more meaningful than it is. And I want to have a longer conversation about Jessica and your economic model in terms of paying for those metrics. That is incredible. But I guess we'll have to do that later. But really, data is delightful. And so how do we use our data to really communicate? One of the challenges is that we hear this story over and over again, that folks are not particularly, they're not interested in the long game. Well, people waited 10 years to see the finale of Game of Thrones. We are sophisticated we're sophisticated listeners. Everybody, DNA and story, story is in all of our DNA. And so we really focus on helping our clients. Once they have that, they've defined, they've measured, they're managing, then we get into the space where, what are the metrics that really matter about your business model? And how do we become a documentary brand? How do we take our stakeholders on a long journey with us? Because in the social impact game, we know that it's really hard. We're not focused on quarterly results. Yes, of course, we're creating results and we're communicating results, but we're really focused on the long game. How do we end food waste? How do businesses save the world? And that requires a more sophisticated way of thinking about our metrics and how we tell a story. So the antidote to greenwashing, this is the focus that we bring. We tell the truth. Your metrics tell the truth. Be transparent. Engage your stakeholders. Right-sized. Right-sized is really, really important. Don't make outsized claims. If you're particularly good in one area, highlight that and then be transparent about where you're not and the work you have to do. I think this is one of those pieces where folks are so focused on perfection that they really stop talking. And so we have to get over perfection and really start to tell these incremental stories about change within our organizations and how folks are buying into our movement. Of course, be ambitious, set really ambitious targets. And if you don't meet them, be transparent and communicate that. And then of course, measure what matters. We don't have to measure everything, but it makes sense to measure those pieces that are really, really important to you. As Jessica said, those metrics that reflect what you care about, they reflect your values. So there are some brands out there that are doing really amazing impact communications. And so I want to spend some time kind of highlighting some of those brands. If y'all are familiar with Tony's Chocolonely, they're not available in Canada yet, but they're doing incredible work. It's a chocolate company. They're super fun. Their communications are delightful. But really, they're communicating about ending modern slavery. So they have the way they use their metrics, the way they communicate their purpose it's a delight for folks to take part in. So they're exceptionally good at communicating their big why. Together will make 100% slave-free chocolate, free the norm in chocolate. They bring this to their social media. This is all, these are pieces of their Instagram. This is from their impact report. They talk about the problem. What's the problem? Big chocolate's the problem. And I know it's probably hard to see on the slide, but this little communication here, this tiny little piece is their entire theory of change with their metrics to support it. Tony's creates awareness. Tony's leads by example. Tony's inspires others to act. And underneath this, they have all their B Corp metrics and all of their sustainable, their alignments with the sustainable development goals integrated into their reporting, integrated into their communications. So huge fan of the way Tony's is using storytelling to get folks to engage with their brand and also drive change for other brands. You know, Tony's also recently, they have all of these metrics and all of this incredible work they've done to make their own supply chain slave-free. So they just open chained it. So now they basically offered that to the market and said, everybody else is going to follow our lead. This is how to do it. You can be slave-free too. So really, really exciting use of metrics and storytelling. Warby Parker is another great brand that's doing amazing work. Their 2020 impact report is incredible. So we have information design is really, really important. Not only how we collect metrics, what the metrics we collect, but also how we share those metrics with our stakeholders. So out of a very large impact report, this is one piece of a page that creates a lot of, it really tells a story about Warby Parker and how they're growing. So really interesting, their impact work is sort of second to none. They're one of those brands like Patagonia or Eileen Fisher. And they also have a political stance. They're not shying away from the political situation in the US. In 2020, they started a Get Out the Vote program within their company, and it was pretty amazing. They had 104 poll workers, 861 of their employees used paid time off to go vote. They got press on it. This is super interesting. I think if they just say, yeah, we got out the vote, that's great. But bringing metrics in and then using those metrics to get media attention, that's a really great way to use metrics. Sorry, there's a robot behind me. Sorry. Roomba. So really love the work that Warby Parker is doing and their communications. Everything is completely on brand, but also tells a really interesting story about their mission and how they're moving towards meeting their mission. Gayaki is another great impact company, homegrown impact company. And their work is also super interesting. They've taken those impact metrics to another level where you can go to their website and you can look at what the impact of your individual purchases are going to have in terms of helping them protect virgin old growth forests, virgin rainforests, and create community well-being in the markets in their source communities. Super interesting. But one of my favorite brands is Dr. Bronner's. I hope you all know Dr. Bronner's. They have these kind of not the most attractive bottles, but this is a part of their brand. This is their 2017 impact report. So basically, this impact report at a glance is their B Corp certification. A lot of the really core metrics that B Corp is looking for is all laid out here. And I think this is incredible because it serves a bunch of different pieces. It has their mission, their vision, their values. It describes unique programs. There's a timeline of their activism. There's KPIs and metrics and their goals and their footprints and their B Corp score down here in the corner. But what's really, really interesting about this is that each of these pieces can be chunked out to be a different kind of content. I think that we're all looking for a story to tell, and oftentimes impact companies are not necessarily, they're not telling their own story. They're kind of looking at other brands and thinking, okay, how do I tell a story like that? This Bronner's is completely unapologetically who they are. It's on brand and it's packed with interesting information about the company. They've recently updated their approach to reporting. And so it's all online now, which is amazing. And each and every part of their company, you can find out just go to their main website. This is not hidden in some report somewhere. This is all public facing. So they have transparency, they have great metrics, they're measuring what matters, and they're delightful. They're taking this, and their work is particularly interesting. They do a lot of advocacy for LGBTQ plus folks all over the world. And as a faith-based company, that's a pretty badass thing to do. So really love the work that Dr. Bronner's is doing. If you want to be inspired by an impact report or look at how your company might use metrics to tell a really compelling story, I would definitely look at Dr. Bronner's. I just pulled in a couple scorecards that were created for a company, Uncommon Cacao. They do reporting. They're a chocolate broker, a cacao broker in Latin America. And so basically with I think up to 18 origins now, each origin has its own set of KPIs, but those KPIs are really consistent across all of the origins. Some origins have different pieces, but for the most part, each region has a really fantastic scorecard. This is what they use as sell sheets. These are pieces that go through their social media. Each of these elements of their reporting is a blog post or and potentially a press release. Who do we need to care about this particular thing that we're working on? So want to bring back the mother of dragons for a minute and really just leave you with I think the most important thing that for companies that they're missing is that the KPIs are your content. Your mission and vision values, the description of those unique programs, your timeline, your KPIs and metrics, your goals and footprints. Those pieces, they're all unique pieces to you and fantastic content to really get folks to join you on your mission. Because as impact companies, of course we have to have a strong bottom line, but really the future is about a triple bottom line. And so as we're in this crunchy decade where we're transitioning into this kind of new world of impact metrics, where these metrics are really starting to matter, we're starting to see socially linked loans, we're starting to see all kinds of financial activity focused on metrics. We're in this kind of revolution. And so I think companies like FoodMesh that are consistently collecting metrics and using those metrics to tell an amazing story. These are the brands that are going to rule the decade. And then I just want to say thanks for having me to come and chat. And I think we all need the spirit of this little sand-eating baby as we move forward in our impact businesses.
Thank you so much, Kristy. Looks a little, I can remember my kids eating sand like that. We've got to just go for it. Yeah, metrics really matter in this next decade. I love that. So we have a little bit of time before we head into breakout rooms. So if you have a question for Kristy right now that you feel, you want to ask at the moment, please, you can raise your hand. You do that by clicking on the reactions tab, and there's a raise your hand thing that you can push on.
Something that I actually have a question for Jessica.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, okay, so I think it's incredibly fascinating that you are paying your users to supply you with those metrics. So that's really, really, I'm just kind of taken aback by that. I think that's brilliant. And so what I feel like something really interesting is happening there where you're actually monetizing those metrics. So through the monetization of those metrics, has there been an increase in folks wanting to engage with FoodMesh? I don't know, where is she?
That might need to be a question that you connect with Jessica and ask her offline. But it is amazing that she has found a way to pay for quality metrics and at the same time send some resources and funds through to charities. I'm sure who greatly appreciate that and probably wouldn't have the focus on the metrics if that were not the case. Jessica, you just had a question from Kristy, and yeah, that was, Kristy, do you want to ask that again?
Since you started paying for metrics, has there been an increase in users providing you with metrics? Has it made it easier for you to collect the data you require?
I believe that some people are motivated by that, but they also need the metrics too for their organizations and getting grants. So I don't think it's the only motivating factor, but I think it certainly helps. But that's not really the core reason. It's just because we want to build in kind of like that economic model, but we do find that there is that, because of that, there is a high degree of reliability and yeah, so.
We're seeing some of these things like Loop Mission. If anybody's familiar with Loop, they pay for the waste products, that food that would have gone to landfill or compost. They pay for those. They've created this market for food waste. So it's far more attractive for them to collect that waste than for it to go anywhere else. And I think that's super interesting. But although they don't communicate that, which I think they should, because that's a game changer. Does anybody have any particular questions about impact communications, or should we jump into our breakout rooms?
I have a question before we do that, because some folks might go into your breakout room and some folks might go into Jessica. So Kristy, if I'm a SME at a various stage of development and I want to be kick-ass at my metrics, are there any good resources? I mean, you've obviously given us lots of examples. Yeah. I feel like I'd want to jump on those websites and take a look at what they've done, but there are any, how do you kind of dig into this?
I guess from our perspective, we use 3 different frameworks for our metrics. We use the B Corp assessment. That is everything you have done. We use the Sustainable Development Goals. So that's a 2030 timeline. And then we use Project Drawdown, which is a 2050 timeline. And so I think that I feel like it's okay to be an outlaw when we're thinking about metrics. We are in this space where economic metrics they're rock solid at this point. Like, I don't think that the late stage capitalism is rock solid, but I think the metrics we use to think about profit are. Environmental metrics are getting there. They're getting very, very solid. But in the social impact space, there's a whole bunch of stuff that people are just trying to figure out. And I actually think that's a really exciting place. We're in this really exciting place where you know, within reason, you can kind of go rogue and start to measure things and try to find those unusual alignments. And that's something that we really like to do with our clients is, you know, our metric set is not 5 metrics. And I know I hear this all the time, like choose your 5 metrics. But if you're building this long game story of change, it makes sense to have a suite of metrics. So I think for companies moving forward, it makes sense for folks to really spend a lot of time with the B impact assessment. The B Corp assessment, there's really nothing else like it. And sorry, there's a million sirens here, and I'm sure they're not coming for me, I swear.
Good.
I think the B Corp assessment is a great place to go to start to kind of vision how you're going to use metrics in your organization. And one of the really powerful things about that tool is that there's 2 kinds of metrics that I think really matter. There's those operational metrics, and then there's those impact business model metrics, and they're really different. Let me think of so Decade. I'll use Decade as an example. We served X amount of clients in 2020, and that's one of those metrics that sure that matters to us. Within our business, within our impact business model, we can take that rather than looking at, you know, we had X amount of clients, we can start to look at where our revenue came from, which services actually were folks paying for. So there's those operational metrics that are really about operational efficiency. And then there's those impact metrics, which really align your purpose with your revenue. And I think that's a critical piece. Probably for the folks in the room here, I feel like everybody's probably in the impact game in one way or another. Yep. So maybe that's advice for companies that are still a little bit dinosaurs, because I think probably most of the folks in here are really thinking about how to create that alignment between revenue and impact. But that's a really critical piece. I think a lot of folks don't necessarily think about how do we communicate the alignment between purpose and revenue. And how do we build a metric set that tells a really unique story about that rather than just a bunch of metrics. That
tremendous. Yeah. I mean, some of the brands that you showed us there were just, you know, compelling. And so it would be really interesting to think and, you know, some of them surprisingly in your face, which I think aligns with the kind of, you know, where we're at, or bold, let's say bold.
And you know, at Decade, we're particularly interested in people that are in your face. We love people that want to be in people's faces, in a nice way.
In a nice way. There you go.
But I think, you know, we're all in the impact space. We're all making the business case for impact right now. And so I think it's super interesting to be able to create that business case and drive change with our little metrics that we think may not matter, but are really, really powerful.
Okay. Well, I want to thanks Kristy and Jessica. I'm going to hand it over to Jill, and we're going to move into breakout rooms and some deeper discussions with each of our guests today. Jill?
Absolutely. Thank you so much to Jessica and Kristy for your time sharing your experience. I think this was a fantastic session so far. So we're going to conduct our breakout rooms a little bit differently today. We're actually going to allow all of our attendees to pick which breakout room they would like to go into. So each breakout room will have a facilitator from our partner team, so Rosemary, Michelle, or Meg, and one might have 2, and a note taker, Alice, Brianna, or myself. So we are going to have 2 breakout rooms. Breakout room number 1 will be Kristy, and number 2 will be Jessica. And we're going to ask you guys to pick which would be most beneficial to you to continue this ongoing conversation. We will be following the Chatham House rules. So we welcome everyone to share candidly in these spaces. And after the meeting, you can bring up points to that people spoke to, but please don't attribute them directly to the individuals speaking in these breakout rooms. So the options, these are not topics that we have to, but options that for people to speak in these breakout rooms are, in Kristy's room, we will talk about For a business with lower capacity, what KPIs are the most important to focus on? How can businesses utilize metrics to differentiate themselves from greenwashing/green blushers? If everyone is using metrics, how can businesses set their metrics apart as meaningful? And what are the best ways to create a data story and connect data to your impact goals? How do we determine the best metrics for the right audiences? And then in Jessica's, some of the suggested topics, which should be in the chat momentarily, will be for what audiences have metrics been the most crucial? How do you determine which to prioritize? What are metrics you've used in the food sector that could be applied to other sectors? And incentivizing businesses to provide data selling back to big retailers and data validation. So please note these are just suggested topics, and we welcome you to choose which breakout room you'd like to go into. We will be reconvening around 10:22.
Jill, could you remind again, it was Kristy is breakout room number 1?
Yeah, and
right?
Jessica's breakout
Jessica
room.
is breakout room number 2.
Correct.
Tremendous.
And it should be popping up on your screen momentarily here.
You have to tell us all to go to our rooms.
That's exactly right.
Go to your rooms, guys.
It never gets old.
This is like go to your rooms to do something fun, not because you've done something bad. It's different.
Oh, okay.
Jill, did you want me to go into the room to do note taking instead of yourself?
I just want to make sure that everyone is able to access those rooms. Yeah, Alice, that might be great just because it's not popping up for me at the moment.
You might have to, as the host, actually click the breakout rooms tab to see.
No, for my other one.
Oh, for your other one.
Yeah.
It popped up while you were still going through it for me.
Okay.
So it might have been something that you closed out.
Absolutely. I'm just going to hang tight for a second here just to make sure everyone else can get into those breakout rooms.
Nothing's
Michelle?
popping up for me.
Meg, I'm sending you to Kristy's.
Thanks.
And
Sending
nothing's
Michelle
popping up.
to Jessica.
Perfect.
If other folks need to be sent to breakout rooms,
I need to go to timeout.
Awesome.
Can you send, this is Mike. Can you send me to Kristy's room?
absolutely.
Thank you.
I see Curtis, Sarah, and SJ and Stella's. If any of you would like me to send you to a room, I'd be happy to do so.
Hey, Alice,
Yes,
could you send me into Kirsty's room?
absolutely.
All right.
Here you go.
Sorry to be a pain. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
And Sarah, is there a room that you'd like to go to?
Oh, I think that's just me from my computer when I started at my home office. Sorry.
I'll
Thanks.
do both.
And Curtis, what room would you like to be in?
Jessica's, please.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Alice, are you able to do that? It's not allowing me to move them.
Yeah, I did.
Perfect. And Sarah can stay there. Okay. Let me see.
And then for you, do you want me to send you somewhere?
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not letting me send. Yeah.
Where do you want me to send you?
Can you send me into, I'm supposed to be in Kristy's, right?
Sorry, Jessica's.
Jessica's. Fire me over to Jessica's.
Okay.
Thanks.
Where do you want me? Meg or Jessica's then?
You can go to either, whichever one you would like. Rosemary suggested that you'd probably be best in Kristy's for your benefit, but I think hop wherever you'd like to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see you later.
Awesome. Bye.
So you see that at like the low level, but then as you get higher and higher, there's stakeholder involvement that want to see, metrics, or they have like a corporate responsibility programs that they have to be reporting
All right, do we have everybody back in here? I don't think so. Yes. Okay, great. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope you had a chance to dig a little bit deeper. We certainly did in our breakout room, and a chance to meet some new people that you might connect with certainly for metrics, but for other purposes. So we're curious to know, we'd like to open it up now for folks to share anything that they might have brought up in their breakout room, anything they would like to highlight, but also as well, any next steps. Has this prompted you to do something different around metrics, to reconsider your storytelling, or more broadly to connect with someone that you met here today? So please raise your hand and jump in. And of course, we want to very much thank Jessica and Kristy, amazing food for thought there today.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
I think the big, I'm going to share one of the big ahas that I have is that, I have to confess that I have often thought of metrics as something being a little bit dry and a little bit boring. And I am absolutely not thinking that way at all anymore. Metrics are deeply connected to your why. They're an amazing way to leverage business advantage and also to share out what's happening to motivate broader systems change and to tell stories in a way that are really engaging. So I have completely turned on my head the concept of metrics today. So that was one of those, it feels like a big shift, to be perfectly honest. Any other shifts like that or concepts came up for anybody else in the room? And Jessica and Kristy, please feel free to also jump in as well.
I'm just going to put a link in the chat here.
Thanks. Okay.
Something called, it's an award called Information is Beautiful.
Oh, there you go.
It's like the best designers in the world taking data and telling really, really beautiful, complex stories with data. Yeah, I just think we really need to think of our data not as yes, it's an arduous task sometimes, but it really is it's going to help us tell really compelling stories. And information design is just so powerful. And why say it when you can show it? And so,
yeah, thanks so much. Also, if anybody has any topics that have come up to mind, we've got one from Mike saying, I think it was Mike with Can Do, it'd be nice to have a joint session in the future with another city and another province or state down the road. So we can definitely keep that under consideration. We're really interested in focusing on topics that you want to focus on that will help you move your circular business forward. So don't be shy about putting those suggestions out there. We had one where in the last session on finance, actually, where we ended up talking about space, the need for innovators to have space. The space in downtown Vancouver can be kind of expensive, but we're seeing a lot of empty space. At the moment with COVID, is there a way that we can leverage that space to be able to make it available to innovators as they're developing their circular business? So that's just an example of something that has come up that we hadn't thought about. Well, with that, I think I'll hand it back over to you, Jill, to wrap up our meeting today. Thanks everyone for coming. I enjoyed meeting some new people, and I enjoyed having my idea of data completely turned on its head. I'm excited about it. Data is beautiful. Data creates business success, and data helps us, really tell these great stories that we need to tell to kind of get us to where we need to go in this critical decade.
Absolutely. So thanks, Rosemary. And thanks again to Jessica and Kristy, as well as our facilitators in the breakout room sessions. I feel like there are some really great conversations happening there. So thanks for that. Just a heads up to all participants, within the next week, we'll be sending out a post-event survey along with a resource document, which captures all of the learnings that we had in all of the breakout rooms, as well as the Q&A. However, if people do have a moment right now, we would really appreciate filling the survey link out just so that we are able to develop these events to be the best for you. We really want to cater to the audience. So I'm just going to pop the survey link into the chat, and you're welcome to do that. It will literally take 2 minutes. It's very quick, very simple, really helps us make sure that these events are working for you. And like I said, we really want to be directly responsive to what we can do to help you. Is there someone you want to talk to? Reach out to me. Is there a topic you want to address? Let us know. We want to respond to what you want. You'll see my email on the next slide, and you can also just pop it in the chat right now, message me directly, whatever you would like to do, but we want to hear from you guys. So for the remainder of these series, we are aiming to get together approximately every 2 weeks. We've got 2 sessions left. We've got one on November 10th, speaking to finance, and November 23rd, it will be our policy forum. I'm going to add the registration link for those 2 in the chat as well, in case you haven't registered yet. We'd love to see everybody there. So there it is. We would like to acknowledge funding support from Van City, which has made this series possible, including providing an honorarium for our speakers. So thank you very much to Michelle and to Van City for that. You can also see our partners' emails listed here. So feel free to reach out to any of us for any other topics or people you want to speak to, or even connections. We're happy to make those. Thanks again to our speakers, our partners, and all of you for spending your morning with us. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
And if anybody feels like they want to, we'll be here until 10:30 for another couple of minutes. So if anybody wants to stay in and talk to us directly, feel free to do that. Hi, who's that?
It's Cody. I just wanted to follow up on my previous comment before. I just threw it into the chat. Is there any incentives out there to gather metrics or to share metrics or whatnot? Because governments need metrics to make decisions, so they want them. But then it's, hardship, and it's onerous on the business to collect them and do them. Has anybody heard, like, if the government wants the metrics and they need you to supply it, but it's hard to get the metrics, is there any kind of incentives that are out there that are helping this along?
Cody, were you in the session, the last finance session with Steph from Granted?
If the last session, I couldn't find the link. I had the link the day before, and then it just like,
right.
And I was searching for like 20 minutes trying to find the link, so I couldn't get in.
Well, my mind went to her because, her business is around helping startups and other businesses access grants. And I'm rusty, but I wonder if there isn't opportunity there somewhere around Shred or IRAP or something, if you're developing your metrics. But she'd be a great contact, and there is a recording of that session. But she'd probably be a great person to reach out to.
And sorry, what was her name?
Her name is Steph. Good grief, I'm forgetting her
Stephanie
last
Sang.
name. Mm-hmm. And it's
Stephanie
Granted.
Sang, granted.ca is the business.
Granted.
But yeah, that's a good point. We have the recording of the session, so we can send that to you directly.
Yeah,
I think it went out with the response survey, right?
It did. It went out to
was?
you register, but Cody, I can send the recording directly to you. I've got your email, so just look for an email from Jill Orris.
I think another answer to that question is something, you might want to connect with Jessica about this. So she actually wrote a proposal to the city of Richmond